Welcome to Pulse, today's hotel, restaurant, and bar industry news. A deep dive from HRBUniversal, navigating your industry. With insights from leaders.
You know, there's this lingering illusion about the hospitality industry. It is a stubbornly romantic idea that when you go out to eat or you check into a hotel, you are participating in a really simple, timeless transaction.
Right, like a classic stage play.
Exactly. You walk in, somebody smiles at you, you order from a static piece of paper, and a human being makes it for you.
It is a comforting illusion, for sure. But it completely obscures the reality of what is actually happening behind the curtain in 2026.
Yeah, because the second you pull back that curtain on the 2026 hospitality landscape, that quaint stage play just vanishes. What you are actually looking at is a battlefield.
A highly digitized battlefield.
Right, an industry defined by razor-thin margins, artificial intelligence, and just this brutal fight over shifting consumer wallets.
It has evolved into a hyper-engineered, really high-stakes ecosystem. The margin for error simply does not exist anymore.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today, for you listening, whether you are running a single unit concept or managing a hotel portfolio or, staring at your P&L in a corporate executive suite, we are going on a massive, exhaustive deep dive.
We are looking at the absolute bleeding edge of the hotel, restaurant, bar, and convenience store landscape.
And we have pulled together an incredibly dense stack of intelligence to synthesize for you. Throughout this conversation, we are pulling data from the 2026 National Restaurant Association's State of the Industry report and a phenomenal new 2026 McDonald's AI case study from Digital Defined.
Plus the latest M&A banking briefs from Citizens Bank and Q2 hotel earnings reports from across the sector.
It is essentially a blueprint of survival and scale.
Yeah, we are looking at how the biggest, most capitalized players are entirely rewriting the rules of operations and how those new rules inevitably trickle down to every single operator in the industry.
So, to really understand what is happening to the global food supply chain and where the standard is being set, we have to start with the undisputed titan of scale, McDonald's.
Right.
We are looking at this multi-year alliance they have built with Google Cloud. And we aren't just talking about upgrading some back-office software here.
No, not at all. They are rolling this out across their entire 43,000-store global footprint.
Which is just staggering.
What's fascinating here is the fundamental shift in their technological architecture. Historically, restaurant tech relied heavily on batch-based analytics.
Which means what exactly for the non-technical folks?
Well, data would be collected at the point of sale, sent to a distant centralized cloud server somewhere, processed overnight, and maybe a general manager would get an actionable insight on a dashboard the next morning.
Which, if you have ever actually worked a line, is completely useless, especially when you are in the middle of a Friday lunch rush and your drive-through wait times have suddenly crept above 5 minutes.
Exactly. It is a post-mortem.
Yeah.
And we have to remember the context here. Drive-thrus are generating roughly 70% of total U.S. sales for these quick-service giants.
Right. So 5 minutes in a drive-through isn't an inconvenience. It is an eternity. It is the point where cars start literally backing out of the line and driving to a competitor.
Precisely. The overnight batch processing model is entirely reactive. So, to solve this massive operational bottleneck, McDonald's had to shift to what is known as edge computing.
I want to stop right here and drill down into this because edge computing sounds like a Silicon Valley buzzword bingo. But it is actually a profound physical change to the restaurant itself.
It really is. It is the difference between asking someone a question via snail mail versus having them sitting right next to you in the room.
I like that analogy.
Instead of sending data to a centralized cloud hundreds of miles away, McDonald's physically installed Google-distributed cloud appliances directly inside the restaurants.
Right in the building, like alongside the fryers and the shake machines and the walk-in coolers.
Exactly. And these appliances are equipped with onboard TPUs or tensor processing units.
Which are the heavy-duty AI chips, right?
Yes. They are specialized microchips designed specifically to execute AI inferences locally. They aren't waiting for an internet connection to process data. They are doing the math right there on the premises.
Wow.
We are talking about processing data and delivering inferences in under 100 milliseconds.
Under 100 milliseconds. That is literally faster than the blink of a human eye. But I want to push back on this, or at least contextualize it for the operator listening.
Sure.
Why does a burger joint need to process data in 100 milliseconds? What does that actually look like for the person sitting in their car just staring at the menu board?
Well, it manifests as dynamic, hyper-personalized interactions that happen in real time. Because that TPU sitting in the back office isn't just looking at what you're ordering.
What else is it looking at?
It is processing up to 120 unique signals per order simultaneously.
120 signals before I even say I want a number one.
Yes, it is pulling your loyalty tier from your mobile app proximity, is analyzing the current traffic density outside the store.
That is wild.
It gets crazier. It is monitoring the active capacity of the grill in the kitchen, checking inventory levels, and integrating live barometric pressure and weather forecasts.
Okay, so if the system registers that it is a cold, rainy afternoon and the kitchen is slightly backed up on burgers, what happens?
The reinforcement learning engine recognizes the bottleneck instantly. Within 10 milliseconds, it pushes a $1.49 hot apple pie offer to the digital menu board right as your car pulls up to the speaker.
That is incredible. It is actively managing the demand curve of the customer to protect the operational flow of the kitchen.
Exactly.
If the grill is at capacity, it incentivizes you to buy something from the fryer, and it uses the weather to make that suggestion feel totally organic to you.
And it does all of this without a human manager ever touching a screen. But they are pairing this edge computing with generative voice ordering.
Right, the AI taking your order, which we've all experienced versions of, and frankly, a lot of them historically have been terrible.
They sound robotic, they get confused by background noise, they don't understand accents.
Yeah, exactly. But this case study shows a massive leap forward.
Because the conversational agent isn't just a basic logic tree chatbot anymore. It has been fine-tuned on literally billions of historic McDonald's orders.
So it actually understands context.
It does. It can parse regional dialects.
Yeah.
It can auto-confirm complex combo modifications without kicking the interaction over to a human employee.
And the metrics on this are what operators need to pay attention to because the generative voice system has pushed their order accuracy to 93%.
And more importantly, it has shaved 27 seconds off the average drive-thru time.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, 27 seconds doesn't sound like much to a consumer, but in high-volume quick service, time is the ultimate currency.
Absolutely.
We did the math on this for a previous analysis. Shaving 27 seconds off a drive-thru time translates to roughly $65,000 in additional annual revenue per store just by moving cars through the queue faster so you don't lose the people at the back of the line.
It is a massive financial unlock.
But here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's not just the customer-facing side. It's not just the ordering and the menu boards. It's the physical cooking equipment, the predictive maintenance.
This is perhaps the most critical application of the edge computing architecture. They are utilizing CNN models, convolutional neural networks, to monitor the hardware.
Okay, let's unpack this. It is like every fryer, every grill has a telematic system built into it.
That is exactly what it is.
I keep thinking of it like a Formula One pit crew monitoring a race car as it goes around the track. They know the tire is going to blow before the driver does.
That is a highly accurate analogy.
Yeah.
In these modernized kitchens, you have continuous sensor streams monitoring the vibration frequencies, the ambient temperature variances, and the electrical power draw of the kitchen equipment.
Wait, vibration? It's literally measuring how much a refrigerator compressor is vibrating.
Yes, because a motor sounds and feels different when a bearing is beginning to wear out, long before it actually fails.
Oh, that makes sense.
The convolutional neural network analyzes these micro vibrations locally on that TPU we talked about. It flags an anomaly hours or even days before a catastrophic breakdown actually occurs.
And then it just sends an alert to the manager.
Better than that. It bypasses the manager entirely. The system automatically generates a work order and dispatches it into the corporate maintenance portal.
No way.
The technician arrives with the correct part before the kitchen crew even realizes the machine was in danger of failing.
See, that is the holy grail of operations, and the numbers back it up. By implementing this, they have slashed unplanned equipment outages by 60%.
Across a system of their size, that saves an estimated $35 million in lost revenue and emergency repair premiums.
It also extends the baseline life cycle of the fryers by 15%. So the actionable takeaway here for any operator listening, whether you have one location or 1,000, is that back-of-house technology is no longer just gadgets.
Right. It isn't a nice to have. It is core infrastructure.
If you are still relying on a manager to notice a weird sound coming from the walk-in cooler, you are bleeding money.
However, we have to look at the barriers to entry here. because this level of automated sophistication does not come cheap, and it is not universally applicable without severe growing pains.
Right. I was just thinking, how on earth does a franchise actually afford this? We know that 95% of McDonald's locations are franchise-owned.
Corporate isn't paying to put these Google servers in every kitchen. The local owner-operator is footing the bill.
And that is a huge primary implementation hurdle. The CapEx requirement is immense. According to the data, franchisees are looking at roughly a $220,000 per site investment.
$250,000 per restaurant.
Just to upgrade the tech.
That covers the edge hardware, the necessary backhaul internet upgrades to support the massive data flow, and the extensive crew training required to interface with the new systems.
So if you are a franchisee with 20 locations, you're looking at a multi-million-dollar capital expenditure just to bring your restaurant's brains up to speed.
And I imagine the technical deployment of that isn't just plugging a box into the wall.
Not at all. And it goes far beyond the financial hurdle. When you are operating a global brand, you immediately run into massive regulatory and technical friction. For instance, data sovereignty laws.
Oh, right. Because you are suddenly collecting millions of data points on consumer habits and employee movements.
Precisely. Jurisdictions like the European Union, Brazil, and China have strict mandates regarding where data can live.
They require that these AI models and the localized data they process be hosted regionally with intense on-premise encryption standards.
You cannot just route a French citizen's drive-thru behavioral data back to a server in California. That drastically elongates the rollout timelines and complicates the software architecture.
And what about the physical realities of the tech itself? Because I saw a really interesting footnote in the case study about the voice recognition.
Yeah, the dialect issue.
Right. As good as it is, the speech recognition accuracy was dipping below 85% for certain dialects of Spanish and Tagalog.
This is a critical vulnerability. When you operate at a massive global scale, or even just in highly diverse domestic markets, an 85% accuracy rate is a functional failure.
If order accuracy drops to 85%, that means 15 out of every 100 cars are getting the wrong food.
That creates an absolute bottleneck at the window. You have angry customers handing bags back, managers comping meals, food waste skyrocketing.
Exactly. It completely negates the 27 seconds you save in the front end. It necessitates a massive ongoing acceleration in language model retraining to account for regional slang, acoustic interference from the kitchen, and complex dialect overlapping.
And then there is the security aspect. If every single appliance in your kitchen, your fryer, your grill, your HVAC system is essentially a smart computer talking to a server, the threat matrix expands exponentially.
The digital perimeter of a restaurant used to just be the point-of-sale system. Now it is the entire building.
The reports show that quick service cyber attacks have risen 40% year over year in 2026. Hackers aren't just looking for credit card numbers anymore. They are deploying ransomware that can literally shut down the kitchen appliances remotely.
So you have operators having to implement zero-trust access controls on a deep fryer. It's wild to even say out loud.
It really is. But the integration of AI didn't stop at edge computing and predictive maintenance. Let's look at what happened in January 2025, because they took all this localized processing power and rolled out the virtual AI manager.
This was a direct structural response to a very human, industry-wide crisis, managerial burnout.
Which every single operator listening knows intimately. General managers have been stretched to the breaking point for years.
The time motion studies reveal that general managers were previously spending upwards of 40% of their actual floor shifts on administrative chores.
Things like reconciling inventory, building labor schedules, filling out physical food safety logs.
Checking temperature compliance.
Yeah.
Yes.
They were highly paid administrators hiding in the back office rather than leaders managing the floor and the guest experience. So the solution was to put a virtual AI manager on those same Google Edge appliances.
And the capabilities of this software are genuinely incredible. It fundamentally reimagines the administrative burden.
The virtual AI manager uses generative scheduling engines,
which is so much more than just a template schedule. It is synthesizing local labor laws. It is forecasting demand based on those 120 environmental signals we talked about earlier.
And it is factoring in individual crew availability and preferences. It auto-generates mathematically optimized 14-day rosters.
And it does it instantly, cutting the manual planning time required by a human manager by 85%.
But where it gets slightly dystopian or brilliantly efficient, depending on your perspective, is how the AI manages the operational floor itself. They implemented computer vision quality assurance.
This is a major leap from passive security cameras. These are overhead optical sensors positioned directly above the prep lines, literally watching the sandwiches being assembled in real time.
The system captures the build of the sandwich, the bun, the sauce distribution, the placement of the pickles, and compares it instantly to a programmed golden standard image.
If the computer vision calculates that the deviation probability tops 12%, say, the employee forgot the cheese or put too much ketchup on, a corrective cue immediately pops up on a tablet in front of the prep cook.
Before the sandwich is even wrapped?
Exactly. It catches the mistake while it is still in the employee's hands. The data shows this cut physical assembly errors by 35%.
And they paired this with crew members wearing lightweight, voice-guided headsets for opening and closing checklists. The AI literally walks them through the protocols step by step in their ear.
What's vital for operators to understand here are the resultant metrics. By freeing up the human managers from the back office admin work, the system gave them back an average of 7 labor hours per week.
That is nearly a full shift of time reallocated to actually interacting with guests, monitoring the floor flow, and physically coaching their teams.
And remarkably, creating this highly structured, interactive, digitally guided environment had a massive impact on retention. The 90-day employee turnover rate dropped to 104%.
Now, to an outsider, a 104% turnover rate sounds catastrophic.
Right, you are still turning over your entire staff in a year.
But if you are in this industry, you know that getting it down to 104% is a massive win compared to the 130 to 150% turnover rates quick service brands were seeing just a few years ago.
Employees actually like knowing exactly what is expected of them and having the tools to ensure they do it right.
However, when you introduce an AI manager that is solely responsible for scheduling shifts, monitoring exact sandwich builds, and correcting employees in real time, you are inevitably going to face intense pushback.
Right, and this raises an important question about labor rights in a highly automated environment. You can't just unleash an algorithm on your workforce without oversight.
Labor unions, particularly in progressive regulatory environments like California and France, drew a hard line in the sand. They demanded absolute transparency into how the AI scheduling logic was formulated.
They didn't want a black box algorithm silently punishing workers. For example, if an employee is consistently 2 minutes late, does the AI quietly stop scheduling them for lucrative Friday night shifts?
Workers demanded to know the rules of the game they were playing.
Precisely. And the regulatory bodies agreed. McDonald's and other operators deploying these systems were forced to publish regular fairness audits. They had to prove the algorithm wasn't exhibiting bias.
Furthermore, they had to strictly cap the overtime variance at 5%. The AI cannot ruthlessly optimize schedules in a way that deprives workers of predictable hours or arbitrarily cuts them right before they hit overtime thresholds just to save a few dollars.
And it wasn't just labor that required guardrails. There were strict pricing ethics guardrails implemented as well. We all remember the absolute public relations nightmare a few years ago when some brands tested dynamic surge pricing.
Oh man, charging more for a burger at 1 p.m. than at 3 p.m.
The consumer backlash was immediate and visceral.
People hate feeling gouged. So even though the edge computing AI is fully capable of micro-adjusting prices every 10 milliseconds based on demand, they had to institute a hard 10% price band cap.
The system can offer discounts to drive traffic, but it is heavily restricted from surge pricing the customer during a lunch rush or a rainstorm.
It is a delicate balance. The technology has the power to squeeze every possible penny out of the operation, but if it alienates the labor force and infuriates the customer, the entire ecosystem collapses.
Absolutely true.
Okay, so that is the reality at the absolute top of the food chain. The mega chains are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to build the Silicon Kitchen. They have the capex to play the game.
But we need to look at the other side.
Right. I want to completely shift gears and look at the opposite end of the real estate spectrum. Let's look at the independent virtual brands, the operators who tried to use technology to bypass the physical restaurant entirely.
The contrast between the mega chains and the ghost kitchens in 2026 is incredibly stark.
Just a few years ago, ghost kitchens were touted as the ultimate tech-driven survival tool. The narrative was perfect. Skip the $2 million build-out, skip the dining room, hire zero wait staff.
Just rent a commercial kitchen in an industrial park, hand an iPad to your cooks, and let the delivery apps bring you customers.
It was supposed to democratize the industry. But according to the 2026 data we are looking at, ghost kitchens are facing a brutal existential scale or exit moment.
The initial premise of the ghost kitchen was heavily predicated on avoiding traditional overhead. But what the financial data, specifically the master restaurant methodology, reveals is that the unit economics of a delivery-only model are punishingly tight.
I want to really break down the math for the listener here because this is the actionable reality. If you are operating a ghost kitchen in 2026, the data dictates that you absolutely must clear an 18% contribution margin just to survive.
And you have to realize that 18% is what you need after you have paid the aggregator commission.
Right, and those aggregator commissions, the fees paid to DoorDash, Uber Eats, and the like, are sitting comfortably and firmly at 25 to 30% of the gross order value.
So let's walk through a hypothetical P&L for a single $30 order. The second that order pings on your iPad, $8 to $9 immediately vanishes to the delivery app.
Poof, gone. You haven't even cooked the food yet. Now you have $21 left.
From that $21, you must cover your cost of goods sold, the food, and the specialized delivery packaging, which is not cheap. That is easily another $9.
Now you're down to $12. From that, you pay the hourly labor for the cook who made it. Let's allocate $6 of that order to labor. You have $6 left.
And out of that remaining $6, you still have to pay your lease on the kitchen space, your utilities, your insurance, and somehow find that 18% contribution margin to actually yield a net profit.
It requires a flawless execution of volume. The break-even point is mathematically unforgiving. To even keep the lights on, the data shows an operator must hit 40 orders per day per brand consistently, every single day.
Which doesn't sound like a lot until you realize you have zero foot traffic. You are entirely dependent on the algorithm of the delivery app showing your virtual storefront to people scrolling on their couches.
Which is why the operational strategy for ghost kitchens has had to fundamentally shift. Early on, operators thought the path to growth was horizontal.
Right. They thought, if I have a successful ghost kitchen in Chicago, the way to scale is to open a second dark kitchen in Dallas and a third in Atlanta, expanding the geographic footprint.
But the data says absolutely not. You are just multiplying your fixed costs without guaranteeing volume.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is that the operators who are surviving realize that real operational leverage isn't found in real estate. It is found in production line efficiency.
To scale, you do not open a second kitchen. You add a second entirely distinct virtual brand to your existing production line.
But here's where I want to push back, or at least play devil's advocate.
Go for it.
Isn't the whole point of a delivery app to capture a specific craving? If you have one kitchen and you start running 5 different brands out of it, aren't you just creating chaos for your line cooks?
How do you manage the inventory for a burger joint, a sushi place, and a vegan salad bowl concept all out of the same walk-in cooler?
You don't. And that is the critical caveat that separates the profitable operators from the bankrupt ones. The rule of thumb in 2026 is that the food cost variance between your first brand and your second brand must be less than 3 points.
Explain what that actually means on the prep table.
It means you are diluting your fixed overhead costs without complicating your inventory, your prep stations, or your cook times. If your anchor brand sells smash burgers and French fries, your second brand should absolutely not be sushi.
Your second brand should be a loaded fries concept or a patty melt concept.
I see. It utilizes the exact same raw ingredients, the potatoes, the beef, the cheese, the fryers, the flat top. It just packages them differently under a different logo to capture a different search algorithm on the delivery app.
Precisely. If a consumer searches for burgers, they find your first brand. If they search for late-night loaded fries, they find your second brand.
But the line cook in the back is grabbing from the exact same lexicons of ingredients. You increase your top-line revenue and hit that 40-order minimum without increasing your inventory risk or your labor matrix.
It's ruthless efficiency. You are hacking the digital real estate instead of buying physical real estate.
Which brings us to a really compelling pivot in the industry landscape. Because if tech capex is prohibitively massive at the top end and margins are razor-thin and volume-dependent at the bottom end with ghost kitchens, how do the mid-sized legacy brands survive?
The regional chains with 50 or 100 locations.
The answer is aggressive structural consolidation.
We are looking at a massive resurgence in mergers and acquisitions, consolidating to survive. After a period of really subdued, cautious deal activity over the last few years, 2026 has brought a tidal wave of restaurant M&A.
The transaction volume accelerated incredibly rapidly in the second half of 2025 and into early 2026. This was driven by a stabilization in financing conditions, but more importantly by an immense, almost insatiable appetite from private equity firms.
We are talking about staggering valuations here. Look at the Citizens Bank briefs. We saw Blackstone acquiring Jersey Mike's for roughly $8 billion.
$8 billion, just massive.
We saw Rourke Capital buying Dave's Hot Chicken for around $1 billion. Bain Capital sinking massive investments into Sizzling Platter.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture and look at the connective tissue between all those specific deals, private equity is not just throwing money at popular food.
The valuations are heavily centered on a very specific, highly insulated business model, the asset-light franchisor.
Let's clearly define what asset-light means in this context, because it explains why Wall Street loves these companies so much. Asset-light means the corporate parent company doesn't actually own the physical restaurants.
They don't hold the 20-year commercial leases, they don't buy the expensive predictive maintenance fryers, and they don't manage the hourly labor force.
Exactly. What they own is the intellectual property. They own the brand name, the proprietary recipes, the centralized software architecture, and the master supply chain contracts.
They are scalable platforms with highly proven unit economics. Private equity isn't buying a restaurant company to sell sandwiches, they are buying a royalty stream.
They are buying the right to collect 5% or 6% of the gross sales from thousands of independent franchisees, regardless of whether those individual franchisees are highly profitable or barely breaking even.
It is a strategy designed to insulate the parent company from the exact operational nightmares we just discussed. The 104% turnover rates, the $220,000 tech upgrades.
The parent company collects the royalty and lets the franchisee figure out the local labor market.
It's a game of Monopoly where the properties are getting exponentially more expensive to maintain, so the players with the deepest pockets are teaming up to buy the intellectual rights to the whole board.
And while the private equity firms are aggressively buying, the existing publicly traded giants are ruthlessly trimming the fat.
You see this perfectly illustrated by Darden Restaurants. They are the undisputed titans of full-service dining. They operate massive portfolios, including Olive Garden, Longhorn Steakhouse, Ruth's Chris.
And they made a very strategic, very public decision to wind down the Bahama Breeze brand entirely by April 2026.
It is an exercise in strict portfolio management. They are shedding lower-performing assets that require too much capital to maintain or update.
They are clearing the books to focus entirely on higher-yield properties, while simultaneously allocating resources to the integration of their recent acquisition of the Choose Tex-Mex chain.
They are operating in an environment that simply does not tolerate inefficiency or sentimentality. If a brand isn't performing, you don't spend 5 years trying to turn it around. You amputate it and invest in a brand that is already scaling.
And the reason they have to be this ruthless perfectly explains the macro realities we are seeing. The National Restaurant Association's 2026 State of the Industry report paints a picture of a really tested consumer base and an industry dealing with severe, lingering economic pressure.
The cost pressures on the operator are persistent and they are multifaceted. The industry was hoping for relief, but it hasn't materialized.
You have wage inflation, which hasn't receded. You have severe ongoing hiring constraints, especially for skilled back-of-house labor.
And critically, you have the immediate impact of international tariffs implemented in the first half of 2026.
Right. Those tariffs spike the costs of raw materials, agricultural imports, and crucially, the packaging materials across the board.
So the input costs are rising from every single direction simultaneously.
Now, historically, what does an operator do in that scenario? When the cost of beef goes up and the cost of labor goes up, the operator just prints new menus with higher prices.
Yeah.
You pass the costs down the line.
And this is where the traditional economic dynamic of the hospitality industry has fundamentally broken down in 2026. Operators can no longer simply pass these costs through to the consumer.
The elasticity is completely snapped.
Precisely. The value-conscious consumer has reached their absolute psychological and financial limit. Their own household budgets are too tight.
If you raise the price of a hamburger by another $1 or push a standard cocktail past the $18 mark, the customer doesn't just complain to the waiter, they stop coming entirely. They alter their behavior.
Which creates a terrifying reality for the operator. Your costs are going up, but your pricing power is frozen.
This forces the operator right back to the technologies we discussed at the very beginning of this deep dive. If you can't raise prices to protect your margin, you have to find that margin internally through AI efficiencies, predictive scheduling, and extreme waste reduction.
Because if you don't, and you try to stubbornly raise prices anyway, the customer is going to seek value elsewhere.
And in 2026, elsewhere isn't necessarily another traditional restaurant. Which brings us to one of the most fascinating shifts in consumer behavior.
The convenience store as a legitimate existential threat to the traditional restaurant industry.
This is undoubtedly one of the most disruptive trends in the data. While legacy restaurants are fighting over tech capex, private equity buyouts, and menu pricing, convenience stores have been quietly, methodically stealing massive amounts of share of stomach.
We pulled the numbers from the InTouch Insight 2025 Convenience Store Trends Report, and they are mind-blowing. 85% of U.S. shoppers report that they have tried made-to-order food at a convenience store.
Hot meal purchases at C-stores climbed to 35% of overall transactions.
And the killer metric. 72% of consumers now view C-stores as viable, equal alternatives to traditional quick-service restaurants.
The perception of the convenience store has fundamentally shifted. It is no longer just a place to buy stale coffee and a roller grill hot dog that has been spinning since Tuesday.
Brands like Wawa, Sheetz, Buc-ee's, and modernized local chains have achieved value parity and quality parity in the minds of the consumer. They are offering freshly prepared, highly customizable food at a price point that undercuts the traditional drive-thru.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Because it's not just that the food got better. It's about a massive infrastructure shift happening in the automotive industry that is entirely rewriting the rules of retail foot traffic.
EV charging.
Electric vehicles change the entire concept of dwell time.
Yes. Think about the historic model of a gas station. You pull up, you pump gas for 3 minutes, maybe you run inside to grab a soda, and you leave. The entire interaction is designed to be less than 5 minutes.
But with EVs, 20% of consumers are now choosing a specific convenience store specifically because of its EV chargers.
And if you look at millennials, ages 25 to 34, they over-index massively for this behavior. 45% of them select their retail destination based on charging infrastructure.
And when you are charging a car, you aren't in and out in 3 minutes. You are there for 20, 30, sometimes 40 minutes.
Which creates a massive captive opportunity for bigger basket sizes. If the C-store provides a clean environment, comfortable seating, high-speed Wi-Fi, and high-quality made-to-order food, they aren't just selling you energy for your car.
They capture that entire half hour of the consumer's time and discretionary spend.
It becomes a destination, a third space. And they are monetizing that dwell time brilliantly through retail media networks.
This is a highly lucrative secondary revenue stream. They are turning the digital screens at the charging pump and the massive screens inside the store into highly effective targeted salespeople.
The data shows that 47% of shoppers actively notice these on-site digital ads while they are waiting. And more than a third actually buy a product inside the store because of an ad they saw at the pump.
It converts passive eye share, someone just standing around waiting for a battery to charge, into high-margin ad revenue for the store operator.
Brands will pay a premium to advertise on a screen when they know the customer is literally walking into the store 30 seconds later.
It is a brilliant, highly integrated ecosystem. But, and this is a massive but, with all of this brilliant strategy, the EV chargers, the high-quality made-to-order kitchens, the retail media networks generating ad revenue, there is a glaring operational flaw in the C-store model.
And it comes down to the humans.
The loyalty program execution.
Yes. The data shows that 72% of shoppers are currently enrolled in a C-store loyalty program. And 85% say they would join one if the rewards were personalized to their habits.
Loyalty programs are the lifeblood of repeat business.
But during physical store audits across the country, it was discovered that cashiers failed to even mention the loyalty program to the customer 65% of the time.
That is a staggering failure rate.
No, I have to push back here. I have to ask you, as the expert analyzing these systems, we just spent 20 minutes talking about McDonald's processing global weather data in 10 milliseconds to push an apple pie and deploying computer vision to correct a sandwich build.
Right.
Why, with all this advanced retail technology, is the simple human element, a cashier remembering to say, "Do you have your rewards card?" still the weakest link in the entire multi-billion-dollar chain?
It highlights a critical systemic blind spot in how technology is deployed across the hospitality and retail sectors. You can build the most sophisticated digital ecosystem in the world, You could have millions of dollars of ad tech and supply chain optimization.
Right.
But if the final mile of that system, the actual point of conversion, relies on an undertrained, overburdened, high-turnover human employee to consistently execute a scripted prompt, the system will fail.
Because the human is tired, or there's a line, or they just forgot.
Exactly. This is exactly why McDonald's invested so heavily in the virtual AI manager with the voice-guided headsets. They recognize that relying on human memory in a high-stress, fast-paced environment is mathematically unsound.
The convenience stores have built incredible physical and digital infrastructure with the EV chargers and the kitchens, but they haven't closed the loop on the physical execution at the register.
Which represents a billion-dollar missed opportunity and lost customer lifetime value. Is a fascinating juxtaposition of high-tech and basic human error.
All right, I want to pivot slightly and look at how these exact same operational philosophies are being applied to the lodging side of the industry. Because hospitality isn't just food and beverage, it's hotels, resorts, and lodging.
And hotels are using these exact strategies to maximize revenue in real time.
If we look at the Q2 2026 earnings reports across the major hotel conglomerates, we see widespread, really robust RevPAR gains.
The golden metric for hotels, revenue per available room.
Exactly. It measures both occupancy and rate strategy. And what is notable is that this growth isn't just organic post-pandemic recovery anymore.
It is heavily fueled by targeted brand conversions, much like the M&A consolidation we discussed in the restaurant space, and by aggressively positioning assets around massive, predictable global events, like the FIFA World Cup preparations.
You read through these earnings call transcripts, and every single hotel CEO is touting their AI momentum to Wall Street analysts. But it's different than the restaurant AI.
Because for hotels, AI isn't just about dynamic room pricing or automated guest services like mobile check-in. It is fundamentally about operational agility in the face of extreme macro variables.
Like the weather. The reports specifically highlight using these predictive models to pivot massive physical operations in preparation for hurricane season.
It's predictive modeling applied to physical asset protection, supply chain logistics, and emergency staffing.
It is risk mitigation at a massive scale. If your AI systems can accurately model exactly how a specific weather event will impact regional flight cancellations, local evacuation routes, and local supply chain disruptions, you can adjust your entire operation days in advance.
You can drop room rates to capture stranded travelers, you can adjust your staffing model so employees aren't trapped at the property, and you can modify your food inventory so you aren't stuck with thousands of dollars of spoiled food if the power grid fails.
That level of agility is the difference between a slightly impacted, profitable quarter and a massive, unrecoverable operational loss.
It's all connected. The predictive maintenance analyzing micro vibrations on a McDonald's fryer in Chicago and the predictive weather modeling for a hurricane preparing a Miami resort are running on the exact same underlying philosophy.
Eliminate the element of surprise. Use data to see the future before it happens.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for the actual customer? We've spent the last hour talking about the tech, the mergers, the macroeconomics, the AI schedules.
But the brutal truth of the hospitality industry is that none of this matters. Absolutely zero if the customer doesn't fundamentally crave what is actually on the plate or in the glass.
The physical product must deliver. Which brings us to the consumer trends and the menu innovation strategy, because the flavor mechanics of 2026 are highly sophisticated.
The consumer is stressed, and their palate has evolved to seek very specific types of comfort.
We are pulling incredibly detailed flavor profiling data here from Mosaic Flavors and Food Dive. And the highest confidence platform for fall 2026, scoring a massive 94 out of 100 on their commercial readiness score, is a concept they're calling layered comfort.
It is the evolution of consumer nostalgia. When economic times are tough, consumers retreat to familiar, comforting flavors, but they still want to feel like they are purchasing a premium experience.
So the big question everyone asks every single year, is pumpkin spice finally dead?
It's not dead, but has been significantly demoted. It is no longer the whole story. It is no longer enough to just throw cinnamon and nutmeg into a latte and call it a seasonal menu.
Right. The data suggests that pumpkin spice established the baseline expectation for warm, spiced comfort over the last decade. But in 2026, consumers want genuine culinary architecture.
They are shifting aggressively toward deeper, richer profiles like brown butter, toasted pecan, speculoos, and sticky toffee.
It represents a distinct maturation of the mass market consumer palate. And you see this most aggressively in the rise of what the industry has dubbed the swalty category.
Swalty. Sweet and salty, but evolved far beyond chocolate-covered pretzels.
Yes, it is the integration of deep umami sweet and smoke. This specific flavor category is seeing a staggering projected growth of plus 32% across menus.
It's fascinating because indulgence doesn't just mean high sugar anymore. We're talking about ingredients like miso caramel, smoked maple syrups, black garlic toffee, and complex hickory sesame systems.
I mean, think about that for a second. Black garlic toffee. That is a wildly sophisticated, traditionally fine dining flavor profile that is now hitting mainstream snacking and quick service menus.
And the reason it works is because it reads as genuinely new to the palate, which is incredibly hard to achieve in the mature confectionery and dessert space. The umami triggers a deeper physiological satiety response.
And we are seeing a very similar, sophisticated shift in how the industry handles the concept of sweet heat. We've seen hot honey everywhere for the last few years.
But fall sweet heat is totally different from summer sweet heat. Summer is all about bright, punchy tropical fruits, mango habanero, pineapple chili.
But the 2026 fall profile deepens significantly to match the season. The sweetness carrier shifts away from those tropical notes to deep orchard fruits. Think roasted fig, tart cranberry, and dark honey or maple.
And the heat source itself moves away from fresh, bright peppers to deeper, smokier, earthier profiles like fermented gochujang, smoked chipotle, and North African harissa.
It's warmer, it's richer. As the trend report explicitly says, the goal is less condiment, more cuisine. It has to feel like a composed dish, even if it's just a dipping sauce.
Which is a perfect segue into the bar industry innovations,
Right.
because the beverage side of the industry is undergoing a transformation that is arguably even more massive than the food side.
The single statistic that jumps off the page in this report, 404% growth in spirit-free cocktails. 404%.
The demand for zero-proof, non-alcoholic beverages is no longer a niche trend or a temporary dry January anomaly. It is a foundational, permanent pillar of the 2026 bar scene.
And if you are a bar operator, you know that bartenders aren't just serving glorified sugary fruit juice anymore and charging $12 for it. The consumer won't accept that.
Bartenders are relying heavily on tea and bitter botanicals to build complex, aperitivo-style tonics.
They're using ingredients with innate depth and astringency. Roasted hochicha, earthy matcha, bergamot, juniper, and sage.
These ingredients provide the bite, the complexity, and the slow sipping experience that alcohol traditionally provides.
But what's fascinating here is the underlying driver of this trend. Why are people flocking to this? It's not just about abstaining from alcohol for a night.
Consumers are actively seeking what the industry calls functional wellness.
They want their discretionary spending to actually improve their physical and emotional state rather than just provide a temporary buzz followed by a hangover.
They want functional ingredients, dietary fiber, probiotics, and stress-relieving adaptogens like ashwagandha or lion's mane integrated seamlessly into their normal social drinking habits.
They want the sophisticated communal social experience of sitting at a beautiful, dimly lit cocktail bar combined with the physiological benefits of a wellness retreat. It is a highly demanding consumer expectation.
And we are seeing this exact same desire for physical authenticity in the food itself, particularly in the plant-based sector, which has completely reinvented itself.
The plant-based evolution of 2026 is defined by a hard, definitive pivot away from hyper-processed, lab-created imitation meats.
The era of the fake bleeding burger, the patty that was engineered in a lab to mimic beef through dozens of unpronounceable ingredients, is largely over.
The 2026 focus, according to the data from Avendra International, is entirely on clean, transparent, and authentic ingredients.
Consumers realized that replacing highly processed fast food with highly processed plant food wasn't actually a step toward health. Now they want honest sourcing.
Chefs are putting whole, recognizable vegetables, ancient grains, nutrient-dense pulses, and sea ingredients at the absolute center of the plate.
A mushroom is allowed to be a mushroom again. Doesn't have to pretend to be a chicken nugget.
And they are driving the flavor profiles of these dishes not through lab-created flavor compounds, but through ancient, traditional culinary techniques, slow roasting, pickling, and deep fermentation.
It's a return to culinary roots, but executed with modern precision and scale.
It creates a truly fascinating duality in the hospitality industry right now. On the one hand, you have a back-of-house operation that is essentially a localized data center run by Google Edge AI, processing weather patterns in milliseconds and using computer vision cameras to optimize labor.
On the other hand, you have a front-of-house menu that is aggressively focused on hand-fermented whole vegetables and adaptogenic functional teas.
That is the ultimate synthesized book. What if this entire deep dive, bring it all together for a second. Think about the incredible journey we just went on.
It is a lot to process.
From the TPU processors humming inside a McDonald's drive-thru, calculating the barometric pressure to sell an apple pie, to a ghost kitchen operator sweating over a spreadsheet, trying to find an 18% contribution margin by running 2 brands off one flat-top grill.
To a private equity firm buying a sandwich empire for $8 billion because they want the IP, not the real estate.
All the way down to a bartender mixing a spirit-free hojicha and sage tonic to relieve a customer's stress.
The 2026 hospitality industry is a massive paradox. It is a hyper-engineered, data-ruthless, relentlessly optimized ecosystem.
And yet, its entire purpose, the only reason it exists, is to seamlessly deliver a feeling of analog comfort, nostalgia, and escape to a consumer who is living under immense economic and social pressure.
It takes billions of dollars of artificial intelligence and venture capital just to make you, the guest, feel like you are enjoying a simple, relaxing meal.
The technology must be entirely invisible to the guest, while simultaneously being entirely indispensable to the operator. If the guest sees the machinery, the illusion is ruined. If the operator unplugs the machinery, the business goes bankrupt.
Which is a brilliant way to frame the reality operators are facing today.
Which leaves us with a final lingering thought for you to ponder as you step back onto the floor or look at your next P&L statement. We have seen how every single second, every single millimeter of the hospitality experience is being optimized.
Right, down to the micro vibrations of the equipment.
With AI generating our shift schedules, with computer vision cameras hanging from the ceiling, ensuring our sandwiches are perfectly uniformly built without a single pickle out of place, and with reinforcement learning algorithms deciding the exact price we pay based on the weather outside.
It begs a really fundamental question.
It does. Will the ultimate rare luxury in the future of dining simply be an unscripted, imperfect, uniquely human mistake?
A fascinating and perhaps vital question for the industry to answer.
Keep questioning the world around you. Keep looking behind the curtain to see how the machine actually works, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.